Welcome to Lavender City. Today we're bringing you true stories from people who have had terrifying encounters with stalkers, and they're all too real. Consider subscribing to us before we move on to the first story. Story 1. This story was by far one of the most unforgettable things that ever happened in my life. I went out with friends on a Saturday night, as we usually did. We got relatively wasted, and then things just became vague after that point because it all happened so fast. An hour maybe? There were some guys who came up towards me, but I couldn't remember anything either. I live close to the bar where we were at night, so when I got tired or bored, all it took was a little stroll home for me. When I was starting to sober up a little bit, we always used to leave keys under flower pots in our stoop. I always used that key for nights like these, so I don't have to walk around with my keys on the wall and get drunk, which means tonight was no exception. Once home after drinking too much alcohol, I locked the door behind me and went straight to bed. I skipped changing into pajamas and brushing my teeth. When I heard the front door open downstairs, all thoughts left to ask my little brother if he was home. My best friend had sent me a text asking how to escape from some guy and replied with, "What guy?" That guy was such a creep. My friend said he wouldn't stop talking to me at the bar. I couldn't remember which one she was talking about, but then I heard some noises downstairs and assumed that's my brother making snacks in the kitchen while drunkenness consumed me. "I saw him leave right after you," she added on Snapchat, and heard footsteps coming up my stairs. My best friend messaged me again saying she saw him leave right after I did, and though drunk still managed to be suspicious. The door opened and I couldn't see who it was because of the darkness outside my room. "It's probably just my brother again." I said my brother's name and then the door shut. I didn't hear whoever was walking away, so I thought they were still there. I texted my brother asking if it was him, and he replied right away saying that it wasn't. That's when I knew someone else was in my house, so I was really scared when I found out someone had broken into my house. I didn't know what to do, so I called the police without telling my brother. The 911 operator kept asking me what was wrong, and then I saw a man in my room, and I screamed. The man in the corner opened the door and ran away. I heard him run out the front door. While I was on the phone with the operator, they told me what to do until a cop car showed up. I was still drunk, so my description of the man in the police report may not have been very accurate, but I described him as being mid-20s, stocky, with a bull beard and a short haircut. One of the two officers then lifted his hand and showed me that he was holding a key. It turned out that it was our spare key that we kept under the flower pot. That creep had followed me home and saw me put the key under the pot. The police officer told me not to worry and said he would patrol around my area all night. My brother was advised to keep our doors locked and find a new hiding spot for the key. The next day, I felt relieved when I woke up from my hangover and told my friends what happened. They described the guy who had been following me around in the bar trying to talk to me and how I was oblivious to it. Since that day, we never hid the key outside the house again. Story 2. Last night, our new neighbor invited us over for a barbecue. We met in their backyard at 8 o'clock. I personally met the husband and wife and a teenage boy who was named Jeremy. The husband seemed to be the nicest of them all. I noticed that something was off about the wife, and Jeremy seemed to have some kind of mental or social issues because he wouldn't talk at all. He looks all over the place and he seems really sad or moving. I also catch him staring at me a few times. Each time I get more and more uncomfortable around him. I try hard not to look at him anymore. After eating a burger and hot dog each, our parents talked to his parents for a little bit before we snuck back to our house because I was bored and uncomfortable. The next day, when I was walking to school, I saw someone jump behind a tree on my street. A few minutes later, I saw the same person hiding in a bush in front of someone's house. It was Jeremy. I knew it was him because he has long hair. When I got home that day, my parents met with the neighbors to talk about what happened. They came back later and informed me that Jeremy's dad said he isn't like other kids, which seems enough explanation for them telling you not to get too upset over him following you around at school or anything, as if it were incredibly creepy. The next day, as I sit out in the backyard doing my homework and glancing up at this window by chance, there he is. Jeremy sat looking right back. But of course, when we notice him peeking over some tree branches or something along those lines, he quickly hides himself from us. My parents are always telling me not to worry about things like these since they think everything will work itself out eventually. That night I had been texting friends and whatnot in bed, but then suddenly something clicked. A moment later, my window slid open with a soft click sound that seemed to come from nowhere at all. It was so strange, not knowing who might have opened my room door without knocking first, or if they even really climbed through this particular pane of glass onto their victim's floor. I shot up straight against the wall next door, while pressing hard against both panels, and waited for them there among unfamiliar shadows. My parents turned on the lights, revealing Jeremy holding a large kitchen knife. I screamed, as did my father when he came in and grabbed me to pull me out of the room. When my dad came home, he found the man next door in our house. The man had walked into our house and grabbed his son. My dad screamed and ran over to the neighbor's house to get them. Then, all of us went back to our house and my dad called the police. He got a restraining order against the man next door. My dad said he would make their lives a living hell if they did not move out in a week. Jeremy didn't stay in that house for very long. A week later, he was gone, and we haven't seen him since. We don't know where he is now. Story 3. One of the most prolific and vicious serial killers to have terrorized Los Angeles, Richard Ramirez, is often referred to as the Night Stalker. He was an American serial killer who committed rape, kidnapping, child molestation, and burglary. He was convicted of 13 murders, 5 attempted murders, 11 sexual assaults, and 14 burglaries. Richard's father had a violent temper and would often be away from the family. Richard was in 2 accidents when he was young. The first time, when he was 2 years old, a dresser fell on his head and left him with 30 stitches and a concussion. 3 years later, at a playground, he was unconscious after a swing hit him. He went to the hospital again and got more stitches. In 5th grade, Richard's parents started to worry because he started having seizures in class. It's unclear if the head injuries caused them, but Richard was diagnosed with epilepsy that year and the seizures continued until he became a teenager. Some experts say that this could be what caused him to have disturbing dreams. Richard's cousin, a war hero and idolized figure of his, comes back from Vietnam and starts teaching Richard how to fight and kill. Jessie, the wife of Mike, hates that Richard spends so much time with him as he tells him about raping and killing women. One day, while she was coming in with groceries, Mike pulled out his gun and threatened to shoot her. She dared him to do it, and he pulled the trigger right in front of both of his children. Richard says that's when he became obsessed with killers, crime, murder, and death. He started dealing and doing drugs, and his punishment was getting beatings from his dad. On one particularly brutal night, Richard's father left him chained in a cemetery overnight. To escape, Richard moved in with his older sister, Ruth, and her husband, Roberto. A 15-year-old boy falls into crime when given a key to the hotel he works in. The runner stole from guests at the Holiday Inn. He was caught after the police arrived to investigate a report of domestic violence, but charges were dropped when the victim refused to testify against him. Richard found he became addicted to cocaine. One night, when a woman turned down his advances, Richard raped her brutally and then started to read books by Anton LaVey, the founder of the Church of Satan. The first Night Stalker murder happened in San Francisco, but after the event, the person's identity was unknown. 9-year-old Linda Leon lived nearby, and when she went to find a dollar bill that she dropped, her brother found her stabbed to death. In 2004, the police had collected a DNA sample at the scene of May Leone's murder that matched Richard Ramirez. 2 months after Leone's murder, the son of the 79-year-old lady called the police after his mother was killed, but Richard left no fingerprints. For 8 months, he slipped deeper into addiction and became convinced that the devil had taken control over him again. Richard became increasingly violent over the next 5 months, killing at least 14 people and burglarizing, raping, and assaulting others. But by August 30th, his name and face were known by everyone. The police arrested him the next day. Richard was convicted of the Night Stalker crimes, and the whole world learned about his satanic worship. This attention excited Richard. He wore suits and sunglasses every day to court. Outside of the trial, he received a lot of attention for the first time in his life. Richard had multiple girlfriends, but then there was Doreen. She was 25 years old and believed he was innocent. She wrote him over 75 letters and visited him in court every day. Richard trusted her, and she seemed to care about him, so he proposed to her at the jail. A judge in Los Angeles sentenced Richard Ramirez, the so-called Night Stalker killer and rapist, to death in the gas chamber. After the trial, Richard served most of his time on death row at San Quentin State Prison. The state denied his first round of appeals, and the U.S. Supreme Court refused to review it. He later died of lymphoma while still on death row at the age of 53.